Well, it's getting kind of late in the day, but we have another harvest that we're going to do. And we're going to harvest our C. maxima squash, which are our biggest squash. Now, they're not as prolific as some of the other squash varieties, but we're really curious to see what we get. Now, I'm going to say this early. This is a squash harvest. This is not the squash that we have the video where we're trying to get everybody to guess how many pounds we're harvesting. That's our Canada crookneck squash. These are a different type of squash. It's not part of it. But on that note, if you haven't guessed already, or if you want to change your guess because we haven't harvested the Canada crookneck squash yet, take a look at that video and just put your comment your guess in the comments below on that video, on the Canada crookneck squash video. And up until we harvest, up until we sort of lock the comments, you can keep changing your guess. So that's the fun part with that. So go and check that out. But we're going to give you a little bit of a peek at what's going on here with these C. maxima squash before we harvest them. So here's one of these squash. So this is a variety that's a member of the C. maxima species of squash, one of the 4 types of domesticated squash. And unfortunately, we don't actually know the name of these, but we kind of call them like the big blue squash or something like that.
Winter?
Yeah, they're a winter squash. You could call them blue winter. Maybe we'll have to think of a name for them.
Yeah.
But we like them because they're quite a sweet squash for a large squash like this, and they're reasonably prolific, and the animals enjoy them.
And they do weigh a lot.
So that means it's a lot of food for us, right?
Yep.
So as you can see, I have a helper who is just dying to start harvesting these squash.
Yeah, I might have already harvested one.
Yes, you did harvest one earlier, and it ended up being...
Yeah, we actually did.
It was
1926?
It was 19 pounds. It was just over.
62 pounds. 19
pounds, 62 ounces?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be right. You're pretty good at remembering numbers. So we harvested the one, but I'm gonna pan around here. These plants were kind of at the back of our one garden, and you can see the vines growing kind of all over everything. So we're going to start with this one that's on the path and kind of just work our way along.
Across.
So here we are at squash number 1.
And I'm going to start to get chopping.
Yep, we're going to cut these because they don't have very big stalks, and that's a perfect spot because this one has vines coming out 3 ways. They don't have very big stalks, and we want them to keep over the winter, so you don't want to break the stalk off the top of the plant, basically.
Yeah.
That'll reduce their shelf life. Can you get it?
Yeah.
They're pretty thick. If you need some help, I can...
No, I can do it.
You got that one?
I can do it.
You can always trim it up later.
Ew.
Perfect. So you just got to get that other one off. There you go. So now,
squash
pick that one up. Squash number 1. So pick that one up by the... don't pick it up by the thingy because you don't want it to break off.
By the fruit.
Yep.
Always hold it by the fruit.
So how heavy do you think that is?
Yeah. I think this is about like 10 or 8 pounds because it's not like the last squash. It's not like the first ever squash we harvested.
No, it's not quite as big. It's
yeah,
as big as your head.
Yeah.
Pretty much. All right. Well, there's number 1, and we don't know exactly how many we have left, so we're going to...
Mr. Squash Face!
So we are going to keep harvesting. So they certainly don't call it C. maxima without good reason, because these are big plants. Like, look at those leaves. Yeah. They're huge.
I thought there was one under here. There ain't.
Oh, I bet you there are some in that tangle. We just got to pull the vines out and find them. Always feels a little bit like a shame to pull them out this time of year because you know they really don't have much life left in them, but there's still a lot of biomass there.
So what do you got there, James?
Squash.
Oh boy.
Well, we finally have all the vines pulled out and all the squash harvested, and it kind of looks like a force of nature went through here and made a bit of a mess. But we'll take you over and show you what we ended up with. So here is our haul of our blue C. maxima squash. Doesn't look like a lot in a way, but each one of those is a pretty good size. So we are going to now carry them over to the house and basically weigh each one of them and see kind of what the total weight is. So I have my note taker here, who's all set from number 1 to 10, because we're going to weigh each one of these. I've got 2 scales because the one only goes to 11 pounds, so if any of these are bigger than that, we'll need the second scale. And there's our 10 big blue squash. So we have this scale set to pounds, and I'm going to start with what I think is the smallest one. May not be, but let's see here. So it is 6 pounds, 13 ounces. Number 2. Oh, this one was smaller. 6 pounds, 8 ounces. So here are all the blue squash. Those pumpkins in the back don't count. We purchased them for Halloween because we didn't grow any pumpkins. So there's all 10. We're going to leave them here on this board. We might cover them tonight, but we're going to leave them out to cure for a few days because we've got some nice weather, so that'll be helpful before we put them down into storage. It's kind of a nice thing to do if you have the ability. But I'm going to take you over to our note taker. He's going to tell us how many pounds of squash we just harvested.
So the total to our weight was 97 pounds. And we had a little guessing game, as you can see here.
Mm-hmm.
And you know who won? Alex.
So what was her guess?
Her guess was 90 pounds.
And she was the closest without going over. That's pretty awesome. So how's it feel to have harvested almost 100 pounds of squash?
Awesome.
So you looking forward to eating this over the winter?
Yeah.
And we have more coming
months.
because this is only one kind.
Yes. One kind of winter squash.
So stay tuned. There's one of our 3 winter squash harvests. We obviously have our Canada crookneck and our green striped Kershaw. I never say that right. I think it's Kershaw. I think that's how you pronounce it. Kershaw squash, which we got in later, so we're kind of hoping to leave that in as late as we can. That just goes to show you, it's amazing the amount of food a few plants, even put in an area where you're not really looking after them or they're not even getting the best growing situation, can actually produce for you. And of course, the nice thing about squash, it's very little work. It's planting, harvesting, storing,
Watering.
cooking. Well, watering maybe, but there's really not a lot to it. So that's it for this harvest. Well, this harvest of squash. But we have one little added bonus we're going to go take a look at here in a second. So what are we standing in front of right now? Do you remember what these are?
A little bonus sugar baby watermelons.
That's right. We have, I think, there's 3 left. We've already harvested 1.
3, and then there's 2 over there.
They're a different kind, but they're not quite ready, but very, very close.
Okay.
So, how do you know if a watermelon's ready for harvesting?
You knock on it. Like you're doing a knock-knock joke.
Okay, what about that one? You think it's good?
That one doesn't seem as good.
I have a feeling I know which one it was.
Wait a minute.
Not that one. I think it's number 1,
Yeah, probably.
the biggest one. So what are you going to do?
Chip off the top of it?
And what are we going to do with it?
Eat it!
Yep, it's going to be dessert. And potentially lunches tomorrow for school.
Yeah, yeah.
So on that note...
Wait, what? We're going to school tomorrow?
So on that note, we are headed in to do dinner.